Now it's on.
Now it's on. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the TPA Executive Committee meeting. It's Monday, August 29th, 2022. We are at the Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency headquarters at 301 Datura Street, and I'm going to ask for a roll call, please.
Joel Flores,
Present.
Maria Marino,
Here.
Michael Napoleon,
Here.
Chelsea Reed, Robert Weinrock.
I am here.
Everyone is present.
Thank you. Do we have any modifications to the agenda, Madam Executive Director?
No modifications.
No modifications. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as approved? I have a motion by Commissioner Marino, seconded by Councilman Napoleon. All in favor, all opposed, show that is approved unanimously. Do we have any written or verbal comments from our public? Not at this time. All right, very good. Then we will move on to comments by the chair and member comments. I have no comments. I am complacent. So anybody at the table have any comments? Seeing no comments, we're buzzing right through. We're now at item E. Our executive director has the floor.
All right. Well, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. Just a couple of brief updates. I want to introduce you to our new Deputy of Multimodal, Brian Rusher, who's here today.
Meet you.
Welcome. Brian, do you want to say a couple words just to say hello?
Remember, a couple is two.
Good afternoon. Happy to be here. Happy to be with the team, with Valerie at the helm, and I really look forward to working at Palm Beach TPA. Come from Delray Beach. Prior to that, a private sector consulting firm, and before that, my hometown of Tallahassee, Florida. Go Knowles! So I appreciate all of you taking your time to come to these meetings and giving the governing board the executive functions they need. Look forward to meeting you, but I'll stick around if you want to make introductions after. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Welcome to the club.
Thanks,
What
Brian.
else you got?
All right, I wanted to provide an update on our human resources request for proposals. We recently closed that. Unfortunately, we had all but one follow directions, and the one that we had that followed those directions was way over our budget. So we're having to go back to the drawing board and we'll be re-advertising the RFP and then rescheduling the selection committee. However, in the meantime, our general counsel, we do have a labor attorney who's helping us and serves as our human resources advisor, and any questions that anyone has, we reach out to him, but he's also helping us as we revise our documents and our processes. He's helping us with updates to legal updates and HR updates that to be compliant in our personnel handbook as well. So that's something that we're going to bring to the executive committee at our next meeting on October 3rd, updates to that, to present that as well.
Procedurally, what do we have in place to address the concerns that this body had with respect to employees wanting to voice concerns about management or issues within the agency in an anonymous kind of fashion? What is the process?
Sure. So we encourage staff to, well, if it's with a different staff member, to speak with that staff member or speak with their supervisor, or they can talk to me, or they can contact our HR attorney who's available to anyone.
Do all the employees have that contact information available so that, again, if they're in a situation where they feel a need to report something, they can do it without feeling necessity to come to you to ask for that phone number or whatever?
Sure, we can provide that. I think most people have it, but we can make
All
sure
right.
to
Well, may
send
I
that to everyone.
suggest that we post it like we do the rest of our human resource type signs?
Sure,
and
we can do
then-
that in the meantime. Also, our labor attorney is helping us with conducting a compensation analysis, because that has been one of the concerns from staff, is requesting that, making sure that the salaries are fair And so we are kicking that off. We received the scope from them, and that's under our current contract, our general counsel contract. So they're going to be doing a market analysis, how we compare with our peers for our position ranges and our specific staff members to make sure, and if there's any adjustments that are needed, they'll be done within 30 days.
Very good. Mr. Gogelman, are you on the line?
Yes, sir.
Just want to make sure that Weiss Rotor feels able to handle this as far as the interim needs of the agency.
We do.
All right, that's good for me. As far as billing, that is at. the
It's under our
normal-
contract. Yeah,
It's in the contract.
we just started a new contract. So
Okay. Any questions from the board? All right. Everybody
Uh,
seems to be happy with that process.
yep, we're plugging along. I'm working with them, also reviewing our current job descriptions, making sure they're legally compliant. So we're making progress and plugging along in the meantime.
Is there a need to review job descriptions and just to make sure they all adhere to whatever
Yes.
guidelines?
Yes, and our legal counsel is doing that currently. That's, but I think Paul
I
chimed
heard
in.
you pipe in there, Paul. Was that your answer?
Yes, absolutely. I think that is, as far as reviewing any sort of financial compensation and looking at that, you have to look at the job description. So we're looking at those job descriptions right now.
Do we have matrices for salary here? Like a minimum, a midpoint, a high?
Yep, those are part of the what our legal counsel is confirming those ranges and the individual's salaries based on, they're gonna do a survey with staff based on their time, qualifications and other things, but they are gonna verify our ranges and make sure they're accurate, or they need to become bigger or smaller or be updated. And they're updating our job descriptions as part of that whole exercise, making sure that they're compliant.
Okay.
In addition, our general counsel has offered to provide any required trainings by the state for us as well. So
That's great.
for staff.
When would that occur?
We were actually just emailing about scheduling those in the next month or so. So
All right, when do you anticipate you're gonna be put the requests back out on the street to try again?
we're going, in 2 weeks, we're bringing our 2050 long range transportation plan RFP update to the board to advertise that. So following that, we'd be coming out again with the human resources RFP. We are going to go back to the drawing board in the next couple of weeks and confirm, as we're making progress with our general counsel on some of the items that we were going to have the HR consultant do. We have to revise the work order and the scope for this HR consultant. So the goal is by October to re-advertise, and then in November, selection committee for the HR on-call consultant.
So it's my understanding that a predominant number of these responses were not responsive. How are we going to make sure that we correct that problem in the future?
We are going to have, we're going to look at it closer internally. We're going to make sure that we were talking about having an internal staff member being kind of the practice run if I were an applicant, what things are not clear. We're going to create a checklist. One of the things too, it's one of the bullets later on here, but we are getting ready to launch our new website. So we've been working, PR staff has been working very hard on that with our consultant for that effort. But one of the things was we had to make an amendment to the RFP, and the applicants are supposed to check back and sign the for amendments and sign, and they didn't. So we're not allowed to contact them because it's the cone of silence. So we were talking about this new website automatically notifying them that a change has happened so that they go back and make sure that they sign whatever they need to sign. So that was something that disqualified some of the applicants.
Paul, this is an interesting situation where we understand that we're getting applications that are non-responsive, but we're not able to help the applicant along to correct it. Is this something that you, as our legal counsel, would be able to step in and advise the respondents that there are issues with respect to that their application?
Actually, from a legal standpoint, I think that would be difficult, to be quite honest with you. And I have to raise a bigger question, and that is if they cannot correctly respond to a request for proposals, one has to question what their ability would be to respond to the task that's being proposed.
You make a valid point, since this is obviously a very technical area that we don't want to trip up ourselves.
In talking with, we've got, our firm has a number of people that are labor counsel, and that's all they do is labor relations. And in talking with them, what I've found, it's a little discouraging, to be honest with you, is that there are not a lot of really high-powered, good HR consultants out there, to reach out to. But I think what will happen is we're going to make some revisions to the RFP proposal and put it back out on the street. And all we can do is see who responds.
All right. I'm just questioning why we need to wait for one RFP to run its course before we put the second one out.
Matthew, would you like to speak?
Matthew Kama, the
Yeah.
CFO. We're in a very busy time right now with closing out our fiscal year for fiscal 22. And we want to accomplish all these things are very important. With this RFP that we put out, we called 10 to 12 vendors, walked them through, hey, we need you to do these steps. We need you to do this, pay attention to this. And one of them followed those procedures. We didn't just say, here, good luck. We tried to hold their hand through the whole process. We're looking at how we can do that better. Maybe the addition of a checklist might make that, but they struggled with great firms. But when you have a lot of paperwork with this, it can be easy to trip up. And as soon as we issue it, we can't talk to them at all because it shows favoritism. The moment I'm not even sure that we can respond and say, hey, you didn't submit this, because you have to say that to everyone. So that's why it's a delicate balance to ensure that we're fair and compliant with all of our federal terms. So we're hustling to make that happen, and anyone that we can get on board, we're happy to do that.
I mean, I think as Paul says, it's troubling that they couldn't follow directions, and it makes you wonder about their ability to engage in the exercise that we're asking them to, should they be picked. Anybody else? All right, so we'll go forward with the RFP at the point in time when you feel it's appropriate. And meanwhile, we'll let Weiss be our interim HR department. You'll notice everybody as far as how to contact them so we can ensure everybody feels properly noticed.
Sure.
Okay, good. What else you got?
All right. It was in the news, but just wanted to say it's pretty big news for us since we provided a letter of support, but as a Brightline, oops, looks like there's a typo in there, sorry. But wanted to mention that I don't know, it seems like my slide didn't sync from my computer, but nonetheless, Brightline received a $25 million raise grant for safety improvements from Miami all the way to Orlando. So that's pretty big news. We went to the announcement of that. Really, really great. I know some of you called and supported for that as well. So we're really excited about that. Also went to the Brightline Boca Raton topping off ceremony. They're still on track for December, on track to launch by the end of the year. So really exciting about that. Really excited for that. It looks like the bullets that didn't sync here. I was trying to mention that SFRTA has a new executive director, David Deck. He started on August 15th. We had a call recently with him. We're really excited to have him on board and to be working with him. So really exciting for that. We also had an intermodal coordination workshop in this room last Thursday, trying to bring all the partners together downtown in terms of land use and transportation, economic development. We had over 30 partners here. It was really great event. And we're going to be having a next steps workshop on October 21st. If any of you want to join for that, to talk about next steps for coordination. We have our peer exchange with Austin coming up at the end of September. We'll be reaching out this week to everyone to confirm their attendance as far as the group going there. We have several board members and also county engineering, county administration, county Palm Tran is also going. SFRTA's deputy Diane's going as well. Unfortunately, Dave Deck has a conflict that Friday, but he's going to help us with some of the coordination. And we talked about having a debrief when we come back with him. So it just so happens that he's from Austin and Cap Metro. So it's a great collaboration there. And then I already mentioned that our new website's going to be coming up, launching this coming month. And if you didn't notice, we have a transportation public art mural underway on top of our building. And that was something that has been talked about since we moved here, that it would be great. We couldn't get rid of that. We don't own this building, so it's a lease, but we couldn't get rid of what they call the shark fin or this kind of metal box on top of our roof and what to do with that. And we worked with the city in getting a mural. So it's transportation themed and it should be done soon. The artist started on Friday and has made a lot of progress already. So that's exciting.
Who's paying for that?
That was something that the TPA paid for. It was something that we had talked about as part of an investment with transportation, usually try to put something back into the community with public art. But that's something that, and it's actually a contract that was issued late last year, but then with the artists, but then it's taken so long to get all the permits and all the things that have happened. So I know our PR staff's really excited for it to finally be underway.
Anything else?
Okay.
Just to jump on your report, you probably heard the Palm Tran had a issue with catalytic converters stolen from the I guess the
30.
little guys. I don't know what we call them these days.
Paratransit
The
vehicles.
paratransit. So they have made a quick fix to those so that we are still operating, but and I guess they just arrested some people who have been stealing catalytic converters. I don't know if they were ours or they're just in this new business of stealing catalytic converters. Apparently it doesn't take very long to get them off, zip and gone. So we're back in business at Palm Tran, I guess. All right, that being said, we have minutes to approve. We have the minutes of July 14th, where we didn't do much except I think we hired somebody of note here. Anybody want to make any changes to the minutes, or I'll take a motion to approve? I have a motion by Mayor Flores. I have a second by Commissioner Marino. All in favor, all opposed. Show that is approved unanimously. Great. Okay, now we move on to some important action items. Going to have a discussion about our executive director's employment agreement. There are some little tweaks that we need to consider making adjustments. And Paul, do you want to do that?
Yes, sir. The tweaks, I think that's an accurate name for it, are in your agenda packages, item 2A1. In essence, what happened is we moved, the TPA moved expeditiously to work out a contract and work out the key points of the contract, which was approved by the TPA governing board. In the meantime, Ms. Nielsen asked her legal counsel to review the agreement and advise her with regard to it. And he came back with some minor tweaks, which are set forth. They are merely, in my view, for clarification, and I have no problem in recommending them to you.
Okay, so on page 1, we have just a typo. Instead of prepay, it should be per pay. On page 2, there's the inclusion of the words involving dishonesty or moral turpitude with respect to a crime of a misdemeanor rather than just leaving it any misdemeanor. When we get to page 4, there's a little conversation here. I'm wondering, what was the rationale behind taking out the word divided by 52 weeks times 20 weeks? I mean, doesn't that get us to the same place as 20 weeks?
Yeah, in essence, that, but that was a request that they made, and I think the wording change, again, this is clarification.
Okay. Once upon a time, I remember we had a conversation with our former executive director with respect to his ability to look for another job while he was engaged by us. I don't see that paragraph in here anymore. Did we make the decision to get rid of it?
Yes.
Good. All right. I thought it was silly and it was sort of a catch-22. What I would want to, again, on page 4, the last paragraph, as far as the severance, and of course, this is like alimony. You don't go into a marriage thinking you're going to get a divorce. You don't enter into an employment agreement thinking that you're going to be talking about severance. However, I'm wondering if we shouldn't have the alternative of, and you know, what this does is gives us 45 days to do the lump sum. I could see a situation where an incumbent would find it difficult to make it through that 45 days without any income. And could we have the alternative of continuing to pay at the normal schedule and or do the 45-day lump sum?
Yes, we could.
I'm
Is there a reason
No.
not to?
No reason not to, other than that might be problematic for Ms. Nielsen, but that's her that's her prerogative.
Well,
But
and
we
I
can-
think if we leave it in the alternative, she can take either the lump sum, which could be delayed up to
Yeah.
45 days, or to continue being paid on the regular schedule until the 5 months of severance has been paid out. I'm wondering again from my colleagues, if you see that as something that would be okay to incorporate in this. And Ms. Nielsen, what do you think?
I think that's fine.
We'll
I-
make,
yeah.
we'll make that revision.
All right,
Before-
I just think it's fairer and it makes a little more sense. And, you know, if I was being sent home, you know, the idea of getting a salary for the next 5 months while I figured out my next steps would certainly make my life a little bit less confusing. All right, and I think then we get on to page 5. And you've just added on the verbiage that the leave is protected by the Family Medical Leave Act. That
Correct.
being- And there's a strike through, or no, that's just a part of the definition. All right.
Yep.
With the proposed change to page 4, as far as the payout of the severance, you think we should just leave this for another day to make the vote on it, or vote on it subject to that revision?
I would recommend that you vote on it subject to that revision. And then what we would do is send it to the September TPA Governing Board meeting. And if it's amenable, because these are such minor changes, we could schedule it for the consent agenda.
Okay, I'm going to look for a motion then to approve the First Amendment to the Executive Director's Employment Agreement. I have a motion by the Vice Chair. I have a second by Commissioner Marino. I want you all to take note. I'm working very hard here. Okay. All in favor, all opposed? Show that is approved 5-0. Okay, let's move on to our second action item. Paul?
Yes, the second action item is a resolution that we're asking your review of the resolution and the language that goes with it to recommend it to the governing board. This is to formally create the position of agency clerk, and the agency clerk description and procedures would be added to your operating procedures. Basically, what we're doing is we're actually designated a formal position within the TPA staff. It would be in addition to another position as determined by the executive director. And that person would be the custodian of public records under the public records law. They would be employed to certify any of the correctness of any documents and things of that nature.
You're not contemplating an addition to staff. You're contemplating that this would be someone who would get the additional duties assigned to them?
Correct. Correct.
As
And
I
then the-
read the current bylaws, there is actually in section 4, we do provide that there is an agency clerk, but it's just automatically the TPA executive director who, under these newest provisions, could still be the agency clerk if that was what she desired. So what we've just done basically is given her the ability to delegate this to one of the employees of the agency. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then we've gone ahead and basically outlined the actual duties of the agency clerk. All right, not seeing anything. Do we have any comments? Yeah, we'll take you, Mayor Flores.
Just a quick question about how many record requests do we receive a month? It could be a rough estimate, doesn't have to be.
It's
Well-
not very frequent. I would say that maybe like we received one last in July. And like a reporter might ask for something but it's not very frequent. When our lawsuit was active, it was like a little bit more, with the city of West Palm Beach, but it's not like a very frequent thing.
All right, so, and of course, if it's de minimis in value, we don't charge. And if there's a cost, we send a bill. Commissioner?
Thank you. Do we have an idea of how many hours a week this takes? And I know that on average, I would say, because you're now adding duties to somebody and is there anybody that's willing to do this? That's a multi-tiered question.
Let me start with the answer to that. In the past, Ms. Pierce, when she was on board with us, basically served, while it was the executive director formally, Ms. Pierce actually served as the clerk. She coordinated public records requests. She was also responsible for making sure that notices of meetings got out and things of that sort. So it's, as the chair noted, it's not a new position. It's duties that somebody would be and has been historically performing. And that person would be appointed by the director.
Do we know of anybody that wants these additional duties?
Yes, so we actually, we recently reclassified Amanda Williams' position to be the executive assistant. We need to update her tent card. It says secretary, but it's in her job description to take on this role as the agency clerk.
All right, so is
Okay with that.
is she also responsible for the maintenance of these records as far as our meetings?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. I see no reason to have a problem. Your card's still up there. You're happy. Your card's up. Okay. Then I'm going to, do we have any public comment?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair.
Very good. All right, then I'm going to seek a motion for approval of the amendment to the TPA operating procedures, section 1 and 2.
So moved, and thank you, Amanda.
Second. I have a second by Mayor Flores. My vice chair would made the motion. All in favor, all opposed. That's unanimously approved. Okay, let's move on. Information items?
So we have two information items, really to kind of share with you and then with the committee and see if there's any direction that the committee wishes us to take. So the first one is we're going to talk about our advisory committees and just give an overview of the term limits, renewal process, the members themselves. And more specifically, I want to address that we have 2 grandfathered in members on one of our committees where the operating procedures don't apply to them. So that's something that I want to seek your direction on. So we have 3 advisory committees. The Technical Advisory Committee, this is a required committee. The idea is that each board member would have an appointed representative, but in addition, other cities and local agencies that don't have, aren't able to be on our governing board, they can request a member seat on this committee and it comes to the board for appointment. So for example, the city of Westlake would wanted to participate in the TPA. They requested a seat. Their mayor is now on this committee. We also have the Citizens Advisory Committee where each of our board members is able to appoint a representative on this committee. We need to have at least 11 members, but a maximum of 21. And it is also a required committee to provide the citizens' perspective on transportation planning. And then we have the Vision Zero Advisory Committee. This is not a required committee. However, it does, it focuses on pedestrian bicycle safety primarily and trying to advance our Vision Zero action plan. The number of this committee is also determined by the board with no maximum, but again, it'd be great to have each board member appoint someone on this committee. All three of these committees review the items that come to the board and basically provide input. They provide comments and they also recommend to approve or not approve the things that we bring to the governing board. So that's kind of their role. They're kind of seeing things before they come to the full board, and then we share with the board the comments that they provided and how they voted. All the members on the three committees serve at the pleasure of the board for a term of 3 years. They can be replaced at any time. Their board member might say they want someone else and that goes, they just let us know, and then that new appointment goes to the board. But if not, then their terms are 3 years. They are usually just reappointed representative alternates when the 3 years is up. We see if they still want to serve, and then we bring it to the board. These items are on consent. I would like to be a little bit more proactive moving forward and reach out to the board members and say, your representative is going to be coming up for renewal. Do you want to renew them, or would you like to appoint someone else? Not only when we get a new board member up front, letting them know who their representatives are or what vacancies they have, but also when they're up for renewal, just so that there's more of that connection between the representatives and the board members. And then again, any new members need to request a written request to the board, and we bring that on consent to the board. So just kind of bringing to your attention a little bit of like who is on these committees in terms of when they were appointed and the renewal dates. This is, I have a couple tables for the technical advisory committee, but again, we have some of the members from our board, mostly directors of planning, public works, that type of level of, and then again, if we have someone like Mayor O'Connor from the city of Westlake, he's on this committee as well. And some of our members date back to 2012 or more recently, and then they renew. Currently, Delray has a vacancy, so we're working with them. We actually have an appointment that we're bringing to the board this month for approval. And then here we have some of the other members. There was some, I guess, questions that came up after our last technical advisory committee regarding the technical advisory committee members wondering, or having the impression that this is the voice of our board, of our county commissioners. And so I want to make sure that I'm trying to bring to the attention and make sure that there's some sort of, if not communication, but at least awareness of the appointment. So that might be something that, we revisit with county administration and confirm, are these the right appointments? Are these the folks that you want to be representing, and making sure that our board members are aware of who their representatives are. So that at least there's that connection and some sort of folks are on the same page or aware of each other. So for the county, we have 5 seats, including Palm-Tran, the port, planning, engineering, and airports. So just kind of trying to connect the dots on who the representatives are for each. Pretty good. We're usually full in here, yeah. Oops.
If they don't attend, do they? And if they don't
They-
attend, are they asked to step down?
If they do have unexcused absences, I believe after 3, yeah, then they get kicked off.
Got
So
it.
they have to. But we have a pretty good showing. So it is important. It's not just, an advisory committee. It is basically kind of the leadership staff for the most part from these cities talking to each other and being that filter before it goes to the board. For the CAC, we do have a couple vacancies. We're trying to work on that, trying to find a citizen to represent the board and have a voice at that level as well with other citizens.
Shame on you, Mayor Flores.
So, and just kind of looking, and this is the item I wanted to just kind of to bring to your attention. We do have two members that have been on here on the Citizens Advisory Committee that predate when we adopted bylaws. And they're just kind of currently in our operating procedures, they're just grandfathered in, which means that the bylaws don't apply to them. They have no term. So we're trying to, I asked Paul, is this okay? Or, how should we address this? And he provided basically two possible approaches. One is to amend the operating procedures and add at-large members, because currently the CAC is every board member has a citizen representative. And add this 3-year term to apply to those at-large members, but it would raise the number of CAC members, and we'd have to figure out how do we choose those at-large members. Or approach 2, which is our recommendation as staff, is to amend the operating procedures, give the 2 grandfathered in members a 3-year term limit. And then say, after that, starting now in September, you have 3 years from this date, or unless you leave. But if you have up to 3 years, and then you have to be appointed by a board member if you want to continue to be on here. And that's our recommendation. So our thought was that we could propose adding this to the operating procedures and let them know that. But it's information item for you, to discuss and kind of give us direction on how you'd like to proceed.
All right, Commissioner Marino, you are recognized.
Just a quick question. The 2 that are longstanding that would fall under the grandfathered. What is their participation? I mean, do they attend? Do they participate?
One of, yes, number 24 does attend pretty frequently. Number 23 has not been happy with our situation with parking, so has requested to participate virtually on a regular basis. Number 24 lives in Gardens, and number 23 lives in a town that's not a coastal town that's not represented on our board.
Mayor Flores is looking.
Unless
for someone.
they're represented, they're represented by a county commissioner, but not as a city on our board.
Mayor Chelsea Reed.
We have slow moving microphones today, I think.
Slow moving people today.
Well, so I actually did serve with both of those members when I was on the CAC, and I was Maria Marina's appointee back then. And I know that we had great communication for every meeting. And personally, for me, I speak with both of at least one of my TAC representatives and my Citizens Advisory representative before every single meeting. And so what I'd like to do is I want to commend the TPA. Since you've come on, you've done a really good job. I've been getting more emails about who my people are and what they're doing. And I also look at the agendas from all the meetings to see who's absent or not. And so I think that the proposed idea that the TPA is endorsing is the better one. And I think we need to reiterate the responsibility of the board members to have that relationship with the people they're actually putting in this place, because it does matter. And people are spending their time once a month for hours to either come into West Palm or do something. And if we are going to appoint them, we need to respect that time that they're giving us, as well as the opinion that they want to share.
Mhm.
And number 24 that was on there is a resident within Palm Beach Gardens. And I speak with him also. He reaches out to me, even though he's not my appointee directly. So these are good people. They're spending a lot of time, and I want to make sure that we like I said, the board needs to know that this is something important, that we don't waste folks' time. And that's great. I like the second idea that you talked about.
Councilmember Napoleon.
I like the idea of option 2, give them 3-year terms and then find someone to be appointed. I don't want to expand the board to add at-large members. I think that's a poor choice.
Mayor?
I agree with Councilmember Napoleon. And then as far as, well, there were 3 items that you were looking
Oh,
for
sorry.
guidance. So what's the second one?
We just very, you know, we're
So the
sharing.
whole
term-
process, I do like what you said about reminding people, because what if they weren't appointed by the individual that now sits on this
Mhm.
board? So getting that opportunity to revise the person that they want them to be the representative would be a good idea.
I personally see no reason to put term limits on. I mean, it's difficult to continue to get people that are willing to serve. You know, I would have been happy with 2 or 3 years. I think grandfathering them in one last time is probably the way to go. And I also believe that the renewal process needs to be more proactive. I know with the county commission, everyone who comes up for a reappointment, we get a form to go ahead and approve it, sign off on it. And, you know, sometimes it's just very mechanical, but at least it lets you know that you have a person out there. And I think we need to have at least that process where they're formally introduced as an applicant for that position. Mayor?
I guess my question is, if we don't have term limits, how do board member replace that individual?
It's,
To-
I mean, it becomes a little more. It puts more on your shoulders because you have to tell someone who's served, thank you, but we're now going to put someone new into your spot. I mean, it's still gonna be a 3-year cycle. You're going to appoint, they're gonna come back in 3 years for either a reappointment, or you're going to say, okay, and now I'm gonna give someone else a turn. So
But they
term
do,
limits
there
takes
will
off
be
your shoulder.
terms, they just won't be limits.
There will always be a 3-year term, but they won't be term limited.
But it's not really a term either, because if someone new comes on, they want to appoint someone else,
Yeah.
they can pick someone new. to
Right, I
take
mean,
that
they're
person's
they're
spot.
they're
So, yeah.
serving at
just-
the pleasure of the appointing agents.
A board member, and it happens, and that's something that's been brought up recently. You know, we've had some new board members get on board and they ask, well, who's this person who's calling me? It's like, that's your representative. If you can request to appoint someone else to be your representative at any moment in time, and we bring it to the board for approval. But the 3-year term is basically just saying, at 3 years, we're gonna ask your board member if they want to renew you or appoint you, like it brings back attention to it.
And, you know, again, specifically with the county appointments, if there's a change of the representative in that seat, that person may deem it appropriate to make a change in the appointed person for that district.
Mhm.
So it's not magical 3 years. It's at the pleasure of the appointing individual. All right, I think there seems to be consensus that we go ahead and continue with a 3-year from the September meeting for the 2 individuals, Mr. Brown and Mr. Fagan. Let them know that that will be the last time unless they can find a sponsor, and that we will go ahead and ask for a proactive or have a process for asking for a reappointment prior to the expiration of one's individual, and also make it clear to everybody who's appointing that if during that 3 years they want to make a change, it's within their power. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by
Uh,
Commissioner Marino. Yes,
Chair,
I'm
this
sorry.
is just an informational item, so you don't need to, unless you would like to call a vote on it. This is just an informational item. So
But
you
just
don't.
informational.
Um, let me ask Paul Paul, I know we decided to put this as information just to see what the direction would be. What's the process to, to have a formal direction to bring this to the board, these changes to the operating procedures?
I think the board by consensus can simply advise us of what direction that they want to go, and with the board's permission, we'll put together some wording, and we could bring it to the governing board as early as the September meeting.
All right, unless anybody has an objection to that, then we'll pull the motion off the table and we'll make it a consensus and we'll report that at our next meeting. All right, what else you got?
Great. We have one more item for discussion. This next item is at the June Executive Committee meeting. There was a question on whether the board could be expanded to have more members. So our general counsel provided a legal memo with more direction on that. I'm going to walk through a couple slides, but Paul's available to answer any questions too.
And the short answer is yes.
Yes, the short answer is that we can have up to 25 members. We need at least 5 county commissioners to meet the minimum threshold, which we have. We could either add 4 more local municipalities based on the ones that come up next with the most amount of population, or consider having alternate members such as a smaller city that one year switches with another one, or alternating membership, or we could leave things as is. But just for reference, on the left, we have the populations and the current members that we have on our board. On the right, and this is based on the 2020 census, but on the right, we have the population and as it goes down for the remaining local municipalities. So if more local municipalities were to be added, we'd be going down that list of based on population.
What's the trigger to get 2? What number do you have to hit population wise to get 2 representatives?
I think it's historical.
I thought it was the largest 8 or 9.
Paul, do you know the answer to that? Why, at what threshold do some of the board members reach 2 seats?
Off the top of my head, I do not.
Okay.
It's just been that.
The
way
largest
since
cities have, the top 3 largest cities have 2, well, the county has 5, but the 2 largest cities have 2 seats.
Right.
So,
Yep.
I'm not sure what
When Mayor
the
Grant was here, he
threshold.
wondered
Yeah.
why they weren't getting 2 as well, since he was number 3. My own input on this, if we were going to expand the board by 4, I think that the county would want to take one of those seats to maintain its proportionality. I mean, right now, we have 5 out of 21. If we went to 25, that would really require 6 out of 25 to maintain the same proportionality. But
And how
We'd
many,
be hard pressed to
commissioners are
get 6 representatives.
how many
7.
county commissioners are there?
7.
So 6 out of 7 would be here? Okay.
Paul, I have a question for you. I mean, it's sort of off topic, but how do we get away with having multiple members of the same body in a meeting without bumping into sunshine? I mean, we have 5 commissioners here talking about transportation, 2 members of the city council and the city commission from Boca Raton and West Palm Beach. We don't seem to have a problem with that. Is that because?
I posed that question probably 25 or 30 years ago to the Attorney General's office, and with regard to a different MPO. And the concern was that the city of Palm Bay has 3 of its city council members that sit on the Space Coast Transportation Planning Agency. And if they discussed TPO business at a city of Palm Bay meeting, was that a sunshine violation? And the answer was from the Attorney General was it's not a violation. And I'd be happy to send out a copy of that opinion to you all as background information.
Why don't you kick it out when you have a chance?
I will.
All right, so we have before us the idea of expanding the board. Mayor Flores, you're recognized, and then
I'll go to Vice Mayor. She was before me, so
Mayor, Vice Chair.
Vice Chair, sorry.
It's even better when it's like mayor, but vice mayor, vice Weiss sometimes
Weiss.
too.
Vice
Vice Weiss, all the, lots of vicing. I think we'd need a longer conversation about what it would look like, because if you do the math on a 6 body representation from the county versus 5, it's, you're splitting hairs really, because it's like a 3.5 if you do the math versus with the 5 as it is, or 4.1 with 6 underneath 25. So I think you might get some kickback from the municipalities about putting more county commissioners on the board. So it would have to, if this is a conversation we're going to have, it's going to be a lengthy one.
To me, it's not so much about adding another one. It's just about what happens if you guys have other meetings, which has occurred where you only have 2 backups. Now you have no backups. You would have one person representing 5 or 6, I should say. So to me, that might make it a little bit unfair for you guys in an issue that you guys are not here for. I guess my standpoint on adding people would be to give a voice that's maybe not represented, so smaller municipalities. So right now we are looking at what the largest 8 or 9. So I don't know how we would involve a place like, I don't know, Juno Beach or Highland Beach or Briny Breezes. So I guess I would like to see some of the smaller municipalities have a seat. And how do we come to that agreement, or how do we come to that arrangement? I don't
Are you
know.
thinking of a rotation? Or are you thinking of a permanent?
I'm not a fan of the rotation, the alternating, just because you lose track of what occurred the last year. But I don't know if we can invite 1 or 2 of the smaller municipalities to be part of, if we're going to expand. I guess I want to earmark 2 that are Westlakes, or I don't know, you guys, we figured something out, but I guess I would like smaller municipalities that maybe their traffic might be slightly different than ours.
All right, before I take the councilman, I'm going to allow Matthew to chime in.
Sorry to interject once more, but the requirement for an MPO is to represent 75% of the population. So it's based on how much of the population is represented by the representatives that we
That's an
have
interesting point.
appointed. And then beyond that, because there's a limitation of the number of seats that can be there, you have more flexibility to say how that works, as long as that threshold is met. I would confirm with Paul, but it is the 75% representation.
Did
that
you
I'm aware of.
calculate to see that we made our 75%?
I could do that for another meeting, but I.
You
I
brought
have
it
not-
up.
I did, I have.
We're well ahead of that.
We're well within that, so I just wanted to point out that you would have some more freedom to represent the smaller cities, should you choose.
Okay, Councilman.
I'm much less concerned with the county maintaining proportionality, because if you go back to the last slide, you'll see Boynton has 80,000 people and it has 1 vote, and Belglade has 16,000 people and has 1 vote. So I'm less concerned about the county's vote being diluted. They've already got 5 people on the board. I'm fine with that. I'm not sure we need to expand the board. I mean, I would maybe give just 2 seats, not a lot, because again, we start going down to, what's the threshold and what's the difference between 9,000 and 10,000 residents? Where do we draw the line as to who comes in? Or do we want to do, if we want to expand at all, do we even want to do an at-large seat where someone gets appointed for 3 years and then another at-large comes open, that same municipality can get reappointed? I don't know what the right procedure is, but I don't think just expanding for the sake of expanding makes a lot of sense unless we have a good reason to add more people. Because again, the more people you put on a board, sure, it's more input, but it also becomes that much more complicated to get anything done.
More difficult to get a quorum.
Well, that's 2.
Commissioner?
I don't think we need to add 4 seats. I would be inclined to add 1 or 2 at-large seats. I know that Tequesta went through all of the gyrations that they went through to do their lane diet with a lot of help from the TPA. And it might have been nice for them to actually be a TPA member when they were doing this. And I do know that, there's a lot of cities that we have to go through to get from one city to another. So even though they may be small, they're really part of our network. So I would see an at-large posting of maybe 3 years and on a rotational basis. And I don't know how we would choose those, but I could see that, as opposed to adding four new seats to add 4 seats and make us larger.
I'm assuming that you would contemplate those at-large seats being appointed by the board.
I would think so.
Okay.
Well, okay. There we go.
The light's on.
I know, thank you. We're probably not the first MPO or TPA to go through this, so I would like to know if there are best practices out there for previous situations and what works and what doesn't work.
Sure. And I'm going to ask Mayor Weinroth and Commissioner Marino, because we used to have two alternating like at large seats a while back. And I believe we had a discussion about, but then the cities became large enough to become, I think Village of Palm Springs was one. But we've had this discussion in the past. It's not recently, but I don't know if you recall or not. Okay. But I think at some point we did talk about, it might have been 5 or 6 years ago, but we talked about, should we go bigger or not? And the decision was no, but I think now with the new kind of with the census and everything is something that we can revisit, and we can look at how other MPOs have made the decision of adding additional members. Paul, I know you were originally going to present this item. So do you have any other like input or thoughts as you hear? I did mention that we do invite the other cities to have a seat on our technical advisory committee. So they do see if they want to participate. I know Juno Beach has expressed interest. They haven't actually taken the step yet to appoint, but Westlake did. So we do invite other members, other smaller cities, that they can have a seat on the technical advisory committee. But did you have any other thoughts in terms of from your perspective or your research on this item?
Yeah, just a couple items. First of all, with regard to what's the cutoff for a municipality having 1 versus 2 members. And I'll tell you the way that other MPOs have looked at this, there's really no good answer to that. Some of the MPOs that have faced this issue have simply found that there is a gap in population after you get down beyond a certain point. There's a fairly big gap between the next largest cities. So Boynton Beach might fit in, and then I don't know what the next smallest city is, but it would depend on what the gap is. The second thing is with regard to the alternating member concept. That has actually worked surprisingly well for some MPOs. And you would think that because you have a member that is serving for 1 or a couple of years, and then it alternates to another municipality appointing that member, that there'd be some loss of institutional knowledge. But surprisingly, it's my experience in observing it is that it's worked well, and it could work well for the Palm Beach TPA. With regard to alternating membership, though, it seems that when you set up an alternating membership situation, the idea would be to have a group of smaller municipalities in one given area of the county. In other words, you wouldn't want to have the alternating member being Briny Breezes, Tequesta, and Westlake, because they're in very different areas of the county and experience very different problems. The way for setting up an alternating member situation between a couple of cities would be to work with them and put together an interlocal agreement as to which city would represent as the alternating member on the board, and how that person would be selected. So those are basically my thoughts, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, we got 2 more cards up. I'm just wondering, if it ain't broke, do we need to fix it, Mayor?
I agree with that statement. But Paul, I guess when you're talking about alternating membership, were those membership or those boards, did they have to pay a due to be in the, because I believe we have a membership fee that
Some
each city pays.
MPOs, in answer to that, some MPOs charge dues and some do not. So it just depends. And what would happen is if you, I would assume, since all of your regular members do pay some sort of due, I would assume that whoever the alternating member is for a given time period, that municipality would have to make a dues payment.
Valerie, can you give us just information? Is anybody who is not sitting on this board paying an allocation for the TPA board?
I think Matthew's itching to stand to
Just
jump.
itching
on-
to get
yeah,
back.
like,
You started talking dollars and cents, so we don't ask any of those who do not have seats to contribute dues, and they are at the volition of the municipality to do so. We don't have the ability to constrain in any way to do that.
So
And we-
presumably, if someone was invited onto the board, there would be an obligation, a financial obligation as well.
Yes,
What is the minimum obligation? What's Belglade paying?
at this point, it's 10 cents per capita, so
Okay.
$1,600 is what they pay.
Okay. All right, yes, Vice Chair.
So I agree about the, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, for sure. If we are considering possibility of what Commissioner Marino recommended of 2 seats perhaps, then I think we have a document already ready and waiting that would tell us who's involved, which is our long range transportation plan. We could easily just look at that and we'll see which municipalities have things on the docket for the next couple of decades. And that might be a good way to filter out who actually would need to be part of the TPA, because you would see that they were doing, you know, TPA related projects. So that's just my 2 cents.
Commissioner Marino?
On, we're on, we're off, we're on, we're on. Are we on? We're on. You know, a lot of the areas like say District 1, if you look at the north end of the county, Tequesta, Lake Park, North Palm Beach Shores, you know, Jupiter Inlet Colony. They're all small and mostly with the north end, and I'll narrow it down to like Tequesta, Palm Beach, Jupiter Inlet Colony, Juneau, you know, they're very close together. And so projects in the north end of the county would be probably all 3. So I would only say, you know, 1 from that area would be feasible. And if you could, if we were going to do this, it would be a smaller municipality representing a group of smaller municipalities. Does that make sense?
All right, so
But if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I'm not hearing an overwhelming desire to take this next step. It was a nice discussion academically. The question is, does this improve anything? Does it make things better by having a broader membership? And you're back up again.
I am, because
Didn't finish your thought.
Tequesta was a perfect example. They wanted help, they came to us and we helped them. So a smaller municipality is between the Citizens Advisory Committee, the TAC Committee, between the League of Cities. If there is input, we're getting it.
Yeah.
So I think there is representation, just not sitting at the table itself.
Supposed to do. We're
Yeah.
not supposed to just be getting for our own. So
We're-
we should-
and
Yeah, we're supposed to be working on a
We are working-
county-wide
And we are
role.
working with these municipalities. Actually, it was on my director's report that didn't sync, but the town of Juneau Beach adopted a Vision Zero policy, a resolution last Thursday. We have a call with them tomorrow. We're helping them with their section of US 1. I've gone to their council meetings and we are talking with some of these other municipalities, encouraging them actually to have a seat at the TAC if they're interested. So we are working with the different municipalities.
You see it as a handicap for these communities that are not members, that they don't have a sitting member here? Is that taking their projects?
No,
behind-
all of our projects, our grant programs, and you know, we're trying to with League of Cities also share, we're going to be opening up our grant programs again this fall, sharing those opportunities with our local municipalities. But we are, I don't see a hindrance because all of our grant programs are objectively scored as well. So it's, you know, if you are if you have certain criteria, if you're in a disadvantaged area, if you're connecting to a school, if you're, different factors, you're going to get points and you're going to score higher. So it's, if you're in an area where someone died, where they're, because it's unsafe, then all those things make a project rise to the top, not because someone's has a seat at the board.
Mayor Flores?
I guess my final question is, why did this come before us today? Was there a group asking to add, or are we just doing something that?
Check in.
Well,
No.
just something that periodically comes up and we have to vote on it and make a decision. I guess I'm just looking for some historical, why is this coming before us today?
It hasn't come up from anyone externally. We did have, I talked with the mayor of Westlake. They asked how to get more involved. They're now on our technical advisory committee. I don't recall exactly why the question came up in June, but I think at the end of the meeting, there was just a question from the executive committee saying, asking, could the board be expanded? But I'm not sure if it was more just educational or just kind of, let's talk about it.
I think until there's a major sentiment to do something about this from the board, I don't think we need to be doing this on our own. This would need a 3/4 vote from the board to move forward. And I don't really think that there's, really much desire to see this happen. Everybody will see it as reducing their voice at the table. Put your red light back on.
Oh, goodness.
There's only 5 minutes. You can leave it on.
I'm having very big issues with this today. So what I would like to propose is in the interim, which I think that you and the TPA staff are already doing a job. You guys are going to all of these municipalities anyway, to their city council meetings. Are these folks that are not on our board, are they receiving emails about when we have an outreach, an event, a panel, things like that? So maybe if they don't even necessarily have a seat on the board, they're brought into the fold of the education and outreach that the TPA does provide, because, you can say, well, all of our events are listed on the website, of course, but, probably not everyone's checking the website to see when things are coming up.
That's a great, that's a great suggestion. What came to mind was doing targeted outreach to all of these municipalities and sharing with them our newsletter, encouraging them to sign up, stay in the loop of opportunities, and just at least saying hello and making that touch point. So,
I think at a minimum, all of the municipalities, the town managers, city managers should be getting communication that's being disseminated to the board, so they should know what's going on. Because as you said, you don't have to have someone sitting here to be affected by what's going on here. So I think we just need to make sure that the communication is relevant and we stay ahead of it. And I think we can just let this one just sit. She's looking at her red light. She wants to turn it back on.
Your lights off.
Put your light on. You got nothing.
would you recommend that, so when we reach out to these municipalities, that we ask them, would you like to be added on, who would be the best contact from your city to be added onto our board member distribution list in terms of our meetings? Would you like to be added onto our
Problem
newsletter?
with that is those names change
Mhm.
more rapidly than the professional manager. So
Okay.
I think if you
backup.
do the town manager, the
Yes,
city
They
manager,
can disseminate it to their people.
they can disseminate it to their
Okay.
electeds.
Okay,
So
I'm
ask
back up.
the town manager and the city manager if they would like to be added.
So since I was the one who started that, let me just finish it off a little bit. And this may not go over 100% well, but what I'd like to say is 2 things. Number one, our county commissioners represent our districts, right? So
Mhm.
the folks that are in Tequesta and Lake Park and North Palm, reach out to Commissioner Marino, and she actually does a really great job of it. She brings together all of the mayors as well as the city managers as much as she can, and she is a TPA cheerleader all the time. So I know that my district, just as a resident of Palm Beach Gardens, is represented by my county commissioner, number one. Number two, if we do have people like Tequesta or even North Palm, as they just voted in a road consideration, we could always have one of our board members reach out to them and check in and say, is there anything I should be doing to help represent you? Is there anything you need to know about how to apply for a grant, but if you're going to be doing some more? We have this knowledge and that's what we're supposed to be doing. So I'm not saying we have to adopt them. Like, I don't think that, Palm Beach Gardens should adopt Juno, but maybe a little bit. Maybe I should be checking in with them and seeing if there's anything more that they need.
Plus. I'll add to that. Chelsea's right. I do host the mayors and the city managers. So it could be that at our next mayor's meeting, if you would like to just come and introduce yourself, you could do that. Not that I have a formal agenda, but you'd be more than welcome to come and just let the municipalities know who you are, new face as the executive director, and see if there's anything that they need. And I could encourage the rest of our commission to do the same.
All right, I think we've beaten up this subject long enough. I don't think there's any real consensus on doing anything other than making sure that we're proactive about getting information out to all of our communities, not just those who are on the board. That being said, I think that's the end of my agenda. We did it, and we did it before, I don't know what the time is anymore. All right, all right. Any matters that anybody wants to bring up for the good of the order? No, nothing. We will call, excuse me? You got nothing? All right, with that.